Hey, thanks for running with me today. Today I'm doing a threshold session. I'm still on my 10K training program. I have just over a month until the actual race. And yeah, again, I've been thinking about a few things, specifically about running and health and identity. So it's been about 2 years since I picked up running, and maybe about 3 years since I really started trying to become a healthier version of myself. Before this, I cycled through a lot of phases. I dabbled with keto, I did CrossFit, I went through a cycling phase, gym, yoga. I'd commit really hard, fall off, and move on. And now I've been running consistently about 5 or 6 times a week, and I have been trying to squeeze in at least 2 strength sessions. And yeah, I sometimes think back to my very first 5K, which was right by the stream. I think my average pace back then was about 7.5 minutes per kilometer, and I just remember how hard it was. I actually started in the summer, so it was really hot, humid. I was like swaying, sinking into each step. And back then I had really no idea how big of a role running would end up playing in my life. And at a certain point, I set, 10K goals, half marathon goals, and eventually a full marathon goal. And I've been through a couple of cycles of each, but it wasn't until training for the full marathon that I realized just how emotionally invested I'd become. Running had quietly turned into something quite personal for me. And that's somewhere I sometimes struggle. As running keeps growing in popularity, I think that question comes from how I used to define myself. I grew up in a very small town in Wales, and I was very much anti-mainstream back then. Sports felt too obvious, too popular, and I gravitated towards gaming, the music nerds, Lord of the Rings fans, anything to help me feel different. And that mindset followed me for a very long time. I remember forcing myself to listen to Watch the Throne from Kanye and Jay-Z in the early 2010s, just to understand why everyone liked it so much. And at the time I was deep into indie, Death Cab for QT, Modest Mouse, Arcade Fire, real music where the musicians knew how to play instruments and to sing. And back then, music wasn't just music, it was an identity. But somewhere along the way, I got hooked. The whole at a certain point, I ended up memorizing most of the songs on the album, which still serves me very well to this day, about 10-15 years later in the Norebangs. And suddenly mainstream didn't feel like a dirty word anymore. The same thing actually happened with football. I still remember walking into the break room at my very first office job in London and playing FIFA 12 for the first time. I had 2 co-workers try to recruit me for their teams into the fandom, Arsenal or Newcastle. I still remember what the Newcastle guy said. I guess looking back now, I realize the shift didn't happen in Korea. It was already happening back then, and it just took until my 30s to recognize it. And I think that's where some of the discomfort comes from. Maybe I'm not who I thought I was, or I changed. The younger version of me probably wouldn't have taken up running, probably out of pride, probably out of just trying so hard to be different that I dismissed anything popular. But here I am again, running again and again. This time I'm not just dabbling like I did with my other health activities. I'm setting PB goals, I'm chasing numbers, I'm following training cycles. I don't know why. I don't want to just seem like I'm following trends, that I'm just because it's popular. I want my times to speak for themselves. And I don't know if that's pride or maybe insecurity or just the desire to really stick with something this time and to take it seriously. What I do know is out of all the fitness phases I've gone through, running is the only one that stuck. It gives me joy, pride, a real sense of achievement. And I know I'm still probably in the sweet spot where, my efforts turn into big gains and every race comes with a PB and, I get double the dopamine hits. But I hope that maybe 10 or 15 years from now, when I look back, the same way I'm looking back now, I'll still be running. Maybe not to be different, maybe not to prove anything, because somewhere along the way, running became a part of who I am, mainstream or not. Anyway, again, those were just some thoughts from today's run. Thanks for running with me.